Welcome, everyone, to Textiles and Tea with the Handweavers Guild of America. I'm Kathy Group. I'm the advertising manager, and I am your host today. We want to thank our sponsors today, Pamela Bisson and Melody Usher, two people who have come together and become good friends through convergence. They had a great story they shared with me. So thank you both. We appreciate you sponsoring Textiles and Tea today, and I hope you'll enjoy it. As always, please take your questions to the Q&A and not to the chat. Love the comments in the chat, but I can't see those all the time. So if you would, please put your questions in the Q&A and we'll get to as many as we can. Today, we've got Christine K. Miller. Christine is a lifelong fiber artist with experience in weaving, sewing, basketry, embroidery, felting, dyeing, knitting, crochet, and fiber sculpture. In other words, she does it all. She has been weaving for 50 years, and for the last 30 years, she's been weaving with wire to create these sculptural expressions. They're really, really interesting. She teaches how to weave with wire as warp and weft to face-to-face workshops through her online fiber studio and in her newly published book, Weaving with Wire, Creating Woven Metal Fabric, and we'll talk some about that today. Christine continues bringing fiber arts into the educational world with visiting artist programs through workshops. She's going to be at Convergence. We're very excited about that. She is a retired visual arts teacher with local, state, and national arts education recognition. She continues teaching at K-12 programs through her visiting artist program and leads professional development workshops for art educators in school districts across the state of Texas. Welcome, Christine.
Well, hello. There we go. I'm trying to get my camera to come on and stay on. Good afternoon.
It's good to have you here.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me. And I want to thank Pamela and Melody for sponsoring this talk as well. And before we get started, I want to thank my guild, the Dallas Handweavers and Spinners Guild. I've been a member of that guild for 40 years, Kathy,
Wow.
and I would not be the weaver I am without that support and connection. So I know my friends are out there, and my teacher, Donna Kaplan, is out there.
Is she?
I'm blowing her a kiss because I also wouldn't be where I am without taking her wonderful workshop all those many years ago. So
well, thank you, Donna. We all thank you for doing that. Guilds are great. They really are. If you're not a member of a guild, go find one. They're such an anchor in a storm. All right. So first of all, what is your favorite tea?
Oh, my favorite tea is Constant Comment by Bigelow.
Oh.
And, I've been drinking that tea since I was a girl. So really all through my life, I go back to that. It's just a very comforting kind of tea. I love all kinds of tea, but that would be my favorite.
All right. So how did you get started in fiber?
Oh, Lord. If Mr. Miller was here, he'd be rolling his eyes at me because the story is when I was in third grade, I would go out at recess and knit on the playground. And sometimes I teach third graders in my visiting art, programs that I do. And I love seeing them because I tell them that story. It's like, you know what? When I was your age, I started knitting. And that is really when my passion for fiber started. And I like to tell kids, it's like, you just have to be on the lookout. You never know when a passion might show up in your life, and you just got to keep an eye out for that. And that's when it started for me.
Well, I read that somewhere on your blog or in your book, and I was like, I want to find out, is that true? You really were knitting on the playground. When you said you got hassled by some of the kids.
Yeah, the boys said I was knitting diapers. And, when you're in the third grade, back in that time, now that was back in 1963, that was kind of embarrassing. But, my mom taught me, I look back and I learned in elementary school, I learned how to sew my own clothes. I was knitting lace weaves, with mohair. I mean, I was embroidering napkins. I mean, most of these things were kits or patterns, right? I wasn't developing my own things at that time, but I'm really grateful that my mother kept me in kits and supplies and materials nonstop. Like
Oh, that is great.
when
Yeah.
I look back at that, I mean, we didn't have a lot of money. I mean, we were kind of middle class, but she never denied me having the stuff I needed to keep going. And I was just a maker from the very beginning.
Was she your first teacher?
Yeah, she was. And then my grandmother. In fact,
Mhm.
my mother made me take zippers out, over and over. She's like, no, that's not good. No, you need to take that. Do it over.
Uh,
So she was a teacher. Yeah.
yes, yes, I can tell. Um, so we're going to look at a couple of your works, and you're known for weaving with wire, and I'm so excited we have this image because for a lot of people it's really hard for them to wrap their brains around weaving on a floor loom or any loom with wire. So I love we have this picture. So um, talk some about how you got, well, you're going to talk about your friend that you talked about earlier, but also what was the attraction with wire other than it was really cool? What else kind of, and not only that, that kept you with it?
Yeah, it's a good question. I mean, the truth of it is, I took a workshop sponsored by the Guild back in the
Mhm.
90s. Donna Kaplan came to Dallas, and I tell people it's like I didn't really have the money, and I was a young mom, and I didn't think I had the time, but I really knew I wanted to go play and be in a workshop, right? So I signed up, and it's a mystery, Kathy. That workshop, and this is not an exaggeration for me, that workshop profoundly changed my weaving life. From that moment on, for the next 20 years, I did not have fiber warps and I didn't weave cloth. I only wove with wire. Why? I don't know. It just captured my soul. And I just was extremely curious about, okay, well, I can do this. Well, what else can I do? What if I do this? And just continuing to push the material, both mostly in form, what other shapes and what other forms can I make with this woven metal fabric? So I don't know why I love it so much, but even to this day, after 30 years, I mean, I am just crazy about it. I absolutely love it. And after 30 years, I'm telling you, I have not scratched the surface of the possibilities at all. And that's very exciting to me. And that's really why I've written the book and teach the classes, because I just want people to know that there's this path to go down, as well as all the
This
other
rabbit
weaving
hole.
paths. Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
Oh, I love that story. That's wonderful. Well, these two works that we're going to look at now, these are examples of how sculptural your work can be. These are just free form. They're woven, right?
Yes.
So would you talk about what was that progression like to go from, because you just started out weaving like everybody else, right?
Yes.
Flat
Yes. I will.
floor loom. How did that progression go from flat, let's make a scarf, to these sculptures? I know
Well,
that's a big area to cover, but
no, but I think the line was, I was very interested in fashion. Dallas has a market center, and so back in the 80s, I was doing a lot of clothing and garments. Um, And then the workshop, the wire, it makes something that you can sculpt and shape. And I have to say, I think also becoming an art educator, I taught art one and sculpture one in high school. And I think when I became a sculpture teacher, that added a whole nother layer to and there's this. And so not only would I sort of my students and I would sort of bounce off back and forth with each other about ideation, right? Coming up with ideas to take a material into a sculptural form. And you know what? I just really found out, Kathy, I'm a 3D artist. I love that the most. And it took many years for that to sort of bloom and blossom the way it has.
Well, I think it's wonderful that, you realize you're a 3D artist, but you didn't think, okay, I'm a 3D artist, I can't do fiber. That you kept that, you stayed with the fiber and the 3D. That's wonderful.
Well, years ago, and you'll remember it's dead now because there was a big computer problem, but Explore Fiber was a website and that I had for 10 years promoting fiber as a fine art material. And I think that has been something that as an art educator and as a fiber artist, really for decades, I continue to promote and advocate and demonstrate that fiber is a fine art material.
And it's true. It's really hard to get, I think. I think more
Yeah,
people are getting into the idea that fiber can
I
be
I think
fine
they
art.
are. I
Yeah,
think they are.
yeah.
It's gaining more and more respect.
Well, this is a great segue into the next piece because this is definitely sculptural and art. And even if you defined art that there's a theme or a meaning, then this fits. And these are just amazing. So if you would talk about this piece and just how this came about.
Well, when I was teaching high school art, I also started teaching my students about the importance of art as an advocacy tool in the world. And they would have assignments, that they would choose someone that was making art, advocating for whatever they were interested in. And, it was at that time I thought, wait a minute, I want to do that. I want, I've made a lot of decorative art and listen, I respect decorative art. There's no bad about decorative art. There's a place for all of it. But it was that time when I felt like I wanted to move out into using my artwork to really talk about a social issue that was going on or a global issue. This was about the coral reef and the one on the right, it represents a bleached reef, and the one on the left is, of course, a very vibrant and alive reef. And so my husband and I, in fact, I'm sitting in my little mini exhibition in my studio. My husband and I mounted exhibitions that we put out there a few times. And with his resin paintings, he made the 2D watery wall pieces, and I made all the 3D fiber sculptures. So this was a dream come true for me, really, being able to create all these things. And I have to say that, all the processes I've been doing since a child, the knitting, the crochet, the sewing, the basketry I learned along the way. Once I sat down to do this work, it was kind of like Fantasia. I would just kind of open up the top of my head and these pieces would just sort of create themselves. It was, but that's because I had all that foundation of technique and process, right? And I knew how I could take those techniques into new forms.
So you may have said this. Where was this on display? Was it in an exhibit or?
Yes, we mounted an exhibit at the Texas Discovery Gardens in Dallas, and then also at the Art Center of Plano. And we had another little mini exhibit out at the Makers Connect Gallery. So, and it's on exhibit here in my studio day to day. So I get to sit in it all the time.
Good.
Yeah.
Well, all of you in Texas,
Yeah.
come check it out. So the one thing I love is your color use. I can see your pieces behind you and all that gorgeous color. And the thing that I find interesting is that no matter what your material is, you really seem to have a grasp of how to use color in that material. Did you have to learn, for lack for a better term, color theory when you started using these different materials? Because they react differently, right? Some reflect, some don't.
Yeah, they do. I think instinctively I've always been pretty adept at using color, but I will say, when I became an art educator and I really just kept studying more and more about color theories, and that was super helpful for me. It took my thinking to a new level. But this piece, for instance, which is called Inflammation, and um, color is, we have emotional responses to color. There are times when I think about that I want the color to evoke an emotional response, or in that gold and silver piece early on, I wanted it to be beautiful and elegant and sort of classic. And so we have lots of ideas about color. And it's funny, when I was in the art classroom, I used to tell my students that color spins my world. And they would say, well, Miss, what's your favorite color? And I'd say multi. I love them all. I can't choose one. So I do like to spin the dial and you know, play with color. It's
Mhm.
so exciting.
Now, this is called inflammation, right?
Yes,
Somebody's asking. I want to make sure that we
yes,
clarify
yes.
that. Um, Now, you also have a lovely way of combining soft with stiff, soft, fluffy things with the stiff wire. And those are wonderful combinations. This is a great example of that. So where did all that come about? And was it something that you said, I really want contrast here, or did it just kind of happen?
Well, this was created during the coral reef, and honestly, a lot of that happened. But when I have, so years ago, I took Chad Alice Hagen's resist dye felt.
Oh, I love
Um,
her.
yes, she's amazing. I took her workshop in Minneapolis at an SDA conference, and then she came back to Texas. I took it again. And actually, one of my guild sisters and I are going to sort of teach that process in a couple of weeks. I really love that process of resist dyeing felt. I love felt. Just the wool, the feel of the felt is so yummy. And so with the woven metal, and more often than not, when I weave the woven metal, I weave with yarns that are either metallic or have metallic in them, in the novelty yarn. And so I guess I was a crow in a previous life. I don't know, just, the glitter and the shine really draws me in. I love to play with that. But I also love the contrast between the different materials. And even this felt that I dyed, I didn't cut it, I tore it into these little pieces so that it had a very organic line and a very organic edge to it. And it wasn't, just cut straight. Um, and then at the base of it, I would wrap it around each of these tubes to sort of give a little bit of space so it would sort of, spread the tubes apart. And when you look at coral in the real world and organic forms, there's space in between each element, right? So you're trying to play with that idea of space within a sculpture, then what you might call the negative space. And then just, all the little tassel-y things. I don't know. You know what? Really and truly, I have to say it's playtime for me. And I think that's one thing I want to encourage everyone that's here today. It's like, sometimes we just you know, we're just, we decide we're going to do something and we're going to do it, and that's great, right? But we don't always give ourselves time to play and just to mess around with things. And so I think when I was doing the coral reef, I did not slavishly try to create any coral forms. I looked at coral and I'm like, oh, guess what? It can be anything. It can be any color. It can be any shape. I mean, there is no limit. And so it kind of gave me permission to play. And if I can just add one more thing,
Please.
a lot of the work I make is very abstract. It's not a literal representation of something. And I think that people generally have difficulty looking at abstract art because they're like, well, what does it mean? What's it about? You know, that there's not really a clear entry point. And what was interesting for me after all these years of making art that was kind of weird and people didn't really get it, you know, is when I put the idea of coral reef over it. Oh, yes. Okay. Could be the same thing I made without the idea of coral reef, but now, and that's where these concepts about art are really helpful, not only for the maker, but also for the viewer, you know, and then they can put their own ideas on that because they have their own world experiences with that as well.
Hey, Mandy, can you pull that image back up again? We've got a question that's been asked. Now, when we were looking at this piece, the tube, the coral part or the base, that is wire, right? That is woven wire.
It's woven wire.
Okay. And then what's the fluffy stuff? Somebody's asking which is which.
Well, the threads are the novelty yarn that I used in the weft of the woven metals. So it's just
Oh,
bits of yarn. And then the fluffy stuff is resist dyed wool felt
okay.
that I tore into little pieces to make those little leaf kind of things.
I feel like I say this all the time, but it's like, this is a piece you want to be able to see in person and just be able to see all the different textures and colors and everything.
Yeah, photographs do not do any artwork
No,
complete justice ever.
no.
It's a sad thing, but
Well, what are some of the challenges that you've had along the way, but going from just threads or yarn to combining different materials together?
well, wire is a very interesting and lively material, and I think this piece, we've got some amazing spinners in our guild, and my friend Laura Harriet, who's an amazing spinner, and I actually kind of commissioned her to spin this yarn for me for my coral reef because I wanted that super overspun area where it would twist up, but then I wanted the unspun parts to like puff up and so sometimes like I had that made for this particular concept. What's been a challenge for me as I wrote the book and even going beyond with some of my latest work is I'm weaving wider and wider on the loom. So like this piece, the woven metal is 2 inches wide and it's got 60 ends to the inch of wire. It's all 28 gauge wire. But recently I did a grouping of things that are 12 inches wide on the loom with double weave structure. And so as I have gotten wider and longer, the wire is it's just like a recalcitrant child. Sometimes you're just like, no, I'm going to be the boss of you. You are not going to be the boss of me. But, I'm learning, I'm stretching myself, which has been really exciting. And I'm learning even more about what happens when you go wider and longer with the wire. So.
I love how the color just comes and goes and ins and outs of this piece. It's amazing.
Oh, thank
So how do you design? I'm always curious, how is it, you've got everything drawn out, laid out, you know exactly what you're going to do? Is it some, well, let's see what happens when we get on the loom?
you. When I started with the wire, I made a lot of jewelry for quite a long time. And so but usually I would sketch it after I made it. I would get the material and I would play with it. It's like, well, what can you do? You can spiral it, you can pleat it, you can fold it, you can do these different things with it. I think that my creative process is generally just in the moment. Now, after working with woven metal for 30 years, I have a really deep understanding of what it'll do, and mostly, not completely, and what it won't do. And so there are times when I have an idea, and this is going to annoy people, I'm sure, but I just get visions in my head. I mean, they just pop in my head, and then I go, oh, okay, that's a good idea. And then I will try to make that. Sometimes, we do a lot of demonstrating in our guild, and I'll be out and about. And so a lot of times I'll just throw like a 4-inch wide warp. I'll put 10 or 12 yards on of wire. I'll pick out my colors, and I won't really have a project for it. I'll just weave the material, and then it's treasure. And then I'm like, oh my gosh, I have all this material now. What do I want to do with it? And so, I'm also a member of NBO, National Basketry Organization. So I really love making baskets and vessels. And so sometimes I use that material for that. Sometimes I'm making a 3D sculpture. Sometimes I'm doing a bas relief wall hanging.
Mm.
And so the material can just go in so many different directions and you're making your own unique art material. Like nobody else has that, right? It is uniquely your material that then you use to create from. So that's kind of how it is. I think when I was in the classroom, I used to call myself the cowgirl art teacher because I am in Texas now. And I do have a very large collection of boots that I wear. But I, I'm kind of that way when it comes to the woven metal. I just grab it and it's like, okay, let's go. Let's see what's going to happen with it. And it's sometimes things don't go very well. And that's okay. But the metal's kind of forgiving. So if you take it in a direction, you're like, no, I don't think I want to do that. You can sort of back it up and make another run at it in a different way.
Well, as you've said, you're a teacher, you're an educator, and you were in the school systems. You're a well-known and well-liked teacher. You do online classes, you do in-person classes. So, but you started as an artist, right?
Yes.
So do you
Now,
see yourself more of an artist, a teacher,
no,
both, neither?
I'm both, and I am a Gemini legitimately. And so, there you go. I'm just both of those things. I will give a shout out to Donna, in the 90s after I took her workshop. And I was just head down, weaving with wire. And then people in the state, they were like, oh, we want to know how to do that. And so I reached out to Donna. I'm like, are you okay with me teaching this process? Which really, it's just a process or a technique. It's not, I developed my own body of work
Mhm.
that was not, that was my own interpretation of what you could do. But she was so generous. And even as I got ready to write the book and I reached out to her, it's like, okay, after 30 years, I think I'm going to write a book about it. And she was so supportive, sharing images. And I do want to say before I forget, on my YouTube channel, which is Explore Fiber. I did an hour-long interview with Donna last October, and there's a
Oh,
video on the channel, and it was so lovely because I had, I don't know, about 25 of her sculptures, and we kind of went through and she talked about how she did them, because there were things that I was like, I don't know how she did that. You know, I was curious. Um, and so I sort of, you know, as an artist, yes, I love exhibiting my work and I love putting it out there. I have since I started making anything. But I also want this information to live on, and, you know, and just keep this tradition of using wire and metal as fiber from the mid 20th century, from Arlene Fish and Mary Lee Hu, and, you know, and Donna, and just all these different people that blazed the trail. And so I just see myself as a relay race. It's like they pass the baton, I grabbed it, and now I want to pass the baton on to other people. So I don't think I can separate those two roles out. Moment to moment, I really can't. It's very exciting. I love to be both of those things.
well, you teach online. You've got videos where you teach, and then you also teach live. Compare and contrast, that's a good teaching phrase. The online versus in person. I mean, it's obvious the difference is that you're in a room with people, but what are some
Yeah.
of the positives and negatives of each?
Well, so in my online studio, I have it as a self-paced course, and it's all video instruction driven. And so it's just they're watching me on the screen, just like right now. And I talk just like this. And I'm like, I'm so excited about the, you know, I do all that stuff. Um, the advantage about that, and then I also do 3-day Zoom workshops, and I do those about every 6 or 8 weeks. And I've got one coming up in May that there's still some spots open for that. But they have permanent access to that curriculum.
Mhm.
Um, I don't I don't say you can watch it till then and then that's it. You can't see, you know, I don't do any of that. Once you, if you do the online thing, then you have that information until I die or the platform goes down, whichever comes first. Um, but you know, Kathy, we haven't had some, I mean, I did that because of the pandemic. We couldn't be together.
Mhm.
And so I think that so many of us have migrated to really embracing the advantages, because if you're in a Zoom workshop, well, you're in your house, you're using your own loom, you don't have to carry it anywhere. So there's some advantages to that. However, I'm very excited to be teaching at Convergence this summer, because there is a whole different connection with people. If you can be together, I think that's the best. And if you can't, then you can't. But Zoom has, you know, these Zoom workshops have really, not just mine, but all of
Mhm.
them
Mhm.
have really filled a huge gap for people, right?
Yeah, and the nice thing about this summer is I'm looking forward to seeing like people's work and talking
Uh-huh.
to them about their work, and just that opportunity to be in the same room with someone and be able to go, can you come look at this? I'm not sure I'm doing this
Mhm.
right. And I know you can kind of sort of do that on Zoom, but it's so much nicer when you're in a room with someone. So I'm looking forward to having that experience this summer, and I'm sure your folks will be too. They'll be excited. All those classes they took with you, now they can see you in person and have that one-on-one experience that way.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it. I haven't been to Convergence since 2004.
Wow. Well, welcome back. We're glad to have
Thank you.
you.
Thank you. I'm excited. I was going in 2020, but you know,
Weren't we all, right?
yeah. Hmm.
You talked about your book, and it's called Weaving with Wire, and we have an image of it. And then, and I was looking at, I have the book. I love the book. I'm learning tons.
Thank
But
you.
the one thing I was struck by is I saw another, I don't know if I should call it an ebook or an online class or whatever. And I was curious because it's different. It's not another how to make something kind of book. It's not how to weave. And it's this the art of thinking and questioning. And I was wondering, first of all, tell us what it is. And then how did you come up with this? What was the impetus for you to try something like this?
Well, so the art of thinking and questioning, I just relaunched it as a revised, and it's a little course, $24.99. But when I was in the art classroom, Kathy, yes, I taught my students how to make art. I taught them about techniques with materials and processes, of course. But more importantly than that, I was trying to teach them how to think. I was trying to teach them how to problem solve. I would start with my freshmen and I would teach them about the idea of metacognition, which is thinking about your thinking, which for a 14-year-old is a novel idea, you know. And
Well, there's some 60 some odds that probably
well, there you go.
very good
There
at
you
that.
go. I wanted to teach them about divergent thinking because they would come into my classroom and they would just be regurgitating popular culture imagery, SpongeBob and Disney. And I'm like, okay, that's fine. Let's drill down a little bit deeper. Let's get past those ideas that spring out in first, and let's see what else is really more personal to you, more relevant to you, not just to the culture. And some of that is in my Weaving with Wire book. The last chapter is a whole section about basically art education, because I don't know who my reader is. I don't know if they've had any art training. And when you make a unique art material, you have to think about it. There's problem solving involved. And so I'm trying to support them in that way. With the art of thinking and questioning, I have to tell you that I see a distinct lack of critical thinking in the world around me at the moment. And so I just, again, I feel like I'm just a relay. I'm just passing the baton. I took these ideas that I taught my students in my Art 1 classroom, 14 to 16-year-olds. And I'm like, you know what? Teachers need this, students need this, artists can benefit from this. Really, anybody can really come and learn more about thinking and questioning, and it can support you in all ages of your life, because I have to tell you a real quick story. My students would say, Miss, this is how I am. I'm not going to change. And I would just go, okay. From the minute you're born, every single day of your life, you're changing. You are never the same person from one minute to the next. Even after this little presentation, we're all a little bit changed from it, And so I think that we get stuck in our thinking and we don't sometimes ask enough questions. And I really model questioning in my book. You'll notice, Kathy, if you go back and look at the beginning of every chapter, there's 3 questions. As you read every bit, I continue to model asking questions about things, and it will bring new ideas for you as you go through that information. So
That's going on. Yeah. Yeah, I was laughing because I thought my teenage boys were like that. It was their way of saying, I don't want to do anything, was to say, but this is how I am.
yeah. Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
And I laugh because I do it too. I mean, we all do it. We sometimes think we're not changeable, that we can't move on. And
Yeah.
that's why I'm excited about your book. I want to read more about that. So,
yeah. I need to update your copy, by the way.
oh, thanks. Thanks.
I'll do that. Yeah.
So what's next for you? What's the next book, the new workshop, the new fiber or art material you're going to attack?
Well, one of my art sisters and I, she really took to the wire like I did, and we want to create a course for putting wire on rigid heddle looms, but I want to be sure that we can teach so you can control it, because it's a lively material. But what's really next for me, Kathy, and this is a really big thing, is the short version is I've had chronic pain throughout my life. 1 in 5 people have chronic pain. And I had a frozen shoulder about a year ago, and I had chronic pain, and I was panicked. I was freaked out about it because I couldn't weave. I couldn't move. I couldn't weave. And I found these resources that show neuroscience over the last 20 years has proven that the pain that we feel in our body, chronic pain, this is not acute injury pain, right? Is not here. It's up in the neural pathways, and that you can change your thinking. Here we go back to the thinking. You can change your thinking. The brain is neuroplastic, and you can actually change that response. You can dial the pain down, and it has helped me, and I am embarking on a full-fledged exhibition that will be all about this so that I can teach the public. I don't want to hit people over the head with it, but honestly, people don't know about this. And so I want to bring it to the public so that more people can find out about how you can change things about your body when you think you can't. So it is super exciting.
Sounds
And
amazing.
some of the work, like that inflammation piece, that the red and the green one, that's part of this new body of work. The
Oh,
green is,
wow. I didn't get that.
well, I know. I'm giving you the context now. You know, the
Oh,
green is
yeah.
all harmonious and flowing, but the inflammation is busting a move, right? So,
Wow.
yeah.
So what's the timetable? When will we be able to see this, or are these questions premature?
Well, I have a gallery that has expressed interest in the exhibition, and so I'm gonna be in conversation with them. It's gonna
Down in
take a while.
Texas?
Yeah.
Okay.
But I would love for it to go around the world or wherever, So I'm thinking the next year or 18, I'm already starting on it. Everything I'm doing now is headed in this direction, but there will be a lot of information to support the viewer. So when they come into the exhibition, they're going to understand what it's about. I'm not going to be secretive about the
Mm.
concept behind it. Yeah, so I'm a
Wow.
teacher. Let's say I'm an artist. I'm a teacher.
You
There
are,
you
you are, you are.
go. It's
That's
just,
great. Well,
yeah.
I'll be excited to talk to you at Convergence to see
Yeah.
what progression you've made and the latest update on that. We'll have to make sure we do like a Facebook thing so we can let everybody who's involved know what's the latest and the greatest update on that.
Yeah, that would be
Yeah.
great.
Oh, wonderful. Well,
Yes.
good. I'm excited for you. That's wonderful. You heard
Thank
it here
you.
first, folks.
That's right. It's true.
We
It's
get all the
true.
good news on Textiles and Tea.
You do, girl. Y'all are rocking it. I tell
We
you.
have tons of questions, and I
All
know
right.
we're not going to get to all of them. And let me say, if a lot of these questions are how-tos, and what I can tell you for a lot of these, contact Christine, take her class online. She'll be at Convergence. Here's your chance. Come take her class
Mhm.
at Convergence.
There are spots open.
There you go. Here's the class. This is
Yeah.
what we're going to be working on at Convergence, right?
Yeah. Yes.
Oh, good. Now what I don't remember. Is this a 1 day, 3 hour? What is this?
3 day.
Oh, it's a
Yeah.
3 day. Oh, how
It's,
fun.
well,
Oh,
yeah, because
how
I
fun.
teach them how to make the warp, and then I teach them how to put the warp on the loom so they do not pre-warp their looms. And then I teach them how to weave the material, and then we have time at the end to play with the material so that you can, get some hands-on. So it is from beginning to end a complete experience.
Oh, how fun. Now, what day does it start?
I believe it's the 15th of
Okay.
July. It's toward the end of the conference, the
Oh, that'll be a
15th.
perfect way to end the conference. There you go.
I think so.
There you go.
Yeah.
All right. So I'm going to go through some of these and like Caroline, you're asking, how do you attach the wires to your loom? Again, I think that's a how-to question that go online,
Oh,
check out our book. Tons of information in that.
yes, yes.
Oh, and Liz wanted to know the book title, and we did talk about that. What techniques do you use for the tubes? And I think, hi, Jennifer, this is going back to the coral pieces that we looked at.
So I weave this flat material, however wide it is, 1 inch, 2 inch, 4 inches, 8 inches, and then I hand shape it with my hands, and
Oh, okay.
then I sew everything together with wire. I stitch it all together with wire. I stitch the individual units with wire, and then I stitch the units together with wire.
Heather wants to know, was your felt pre-felt, or did you felt it yourself?
It was pre-felt from Outback Fibers.
Okay.
Is where I get it.
All right. Christine, do you hire a photographer to shoot your work?
I do. I do. I have a
Your
great,
images are awesome. They really
thank
are.
you. I've got a great photographer here in Dallas that,
Okay.
and when the book came out, I was like, this is as much your book as it is mine, because her work was, all through the book.
Robin Spady says, is the woven wire work you've shown woven on a loom, or do you also use off loom techniques?
I'm experimenting with off-loom techniques. What I teach is weaving it on a 4 or 8 shaft floor or table loom. It could go even to 16 shafts, but in the workshops we use table and floor looms, but we're working on rigid heddle. I've done some weaving with wire on pin looms. I want to try it on ankle looms. I mean, I want to put wire on every loom and see what happens, but that's going to take a while.
I should have asked this as we go. Most of the pieces that a lot of the pieces that we looked at were the coral pieces. What size are we looking at here, roughly?
They're like maybe 5 inches, 8 inches tall, that 7 inches wide. The piece I just finished, which is 7 sculptures that are all one sort of grouping that can be rearranged, is like 12 inches by 48 by 20 inches, like
Wow.
the whole grouping of them.
Uh-huh.
So I'm really starting to go bigger as well.
And then you put wire in the warp and the weft. You can, or you have?
Yes, mostly I do. Sometimes I don't. I mean, it depends on what you want your end result fabric to be,
Mm-hmm.
whether you put wire in both directions or not. But when you do it in both directions, it makes for the stronger fabric.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Terry Shoemaker wants to know, do you have to protect your hands? Does the wire tear up your hands?
no, it's when I'm sewing things together with the wire that I poke myself with the needle. It's fine on the loom. It's hilarious. There's not a problem.
Okay.
But I'm constantly sticking myself with the needle.
You and me both.
I know.
Jennifer wants to know, are those your husband's pieces on the wall behind you?
Yes, they
So your
are.
husband's an artist too.
Yes, he is.
Oh,
He's a shy artist.
can you tell us his name?
Well, we call him Mr. Miller down here in Texas, but his name is Keith Miller.
Okay.
Yeah.
Where do you buy your wire? And do you
I
always use the same gauge?
I pretty much always use 28 gauge. Just it is the sweet spot of wire, in my
Oh,
opinion. I have gone, in both directions a little bit. I get it from Parawire, and I buy it in bulk. What they sell comes in 200 or 300 feet on a spool, but I buy spools that have 2,000 feet because I use a lot of wire. So, yeah.
um, Julia Blake wants to know, there's a brief mention in Weaving on with Wire of a second book in the works, Weaving with Wire on a Rigid Heddle Loom. How's that going? That's what you've been talking about.
Yeah. You know what? The first book was really easy for me to write because I'd been doing it for 30 years. I knew exactly what to say. I knew exactly what to tell you. These new areas are requiring R&D, and they're going to take a little more time. So I can't answer
Okay.
that question, but it'll be there if I don't die. So I'll make it happen.
Bad luck.
Well,
Here, this is from Heather. I love this. It's kind of serendipity thing here. I took a class in Seattle with Donna Kaplan, weaving wire in the 1990s. And funny, I watched your interview with her on YouTube yesterday, not realizing that you were today's speaker. So it's kind of full circle. Isn't that funny?
I love that.
Heather, we love
I
it that you came today, and thank you for sharing that with us. That's great. Sorry, I'm kind of skipping through.
That's okay.
Oh, here's from Liz again, Liz Adams. Not a question, just an epiphany. Thank you. I used to work a lot with fine wire, currently trying out pin looms. Now I'm going to work with 28 on a pin loom. Thank you, Christine.
Yeah,
You're an
Liz.
inspiration.
Well, and you should email me, or I could tell you some things about that. So I'm encouraging her to contact me because
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, Liz. Did you hear? Hopefully you heard that.
Yeah.
What weave structures do you use other than tabby and twill?
That's mostly what I've used, but one of my guild sisters did a fiber warp in, like, I think she did a crackle, and with wire weft, only wire weft, really fine. And oh my God, it is the most beautiful fabric. So I'm telling you, there's so much more to explore about this. But I pretty much just do twills and mostly twills. I hardly ever do tabby, really.
Loretta Oliver said, how do you keep your creative materials organized? That's your next book. Help us all get organized.
Yeah, well, I pick up after myself. I will say that. I highly recommend that one tip. Just when you're done with something, put your stuff away. But
Linda Erickson. Hello, Linda. What is the composition of the wire? That's a good question. I never thought about it. To me, wire is wire. What kind of wire is it?
Well, they're copper or aluminum. They're coated with a plastic.
Oh, are they?
Yeah,
Plastic?
listen,
Oh.
there's bare wire, there's coated wire, I mean, it's like any other art material. Every wire has its own personality and its own kind of thing. Even when I buy from Parawire, the 28 gauge in different colors, it will feel, I mean, it'll just be a little different. The antique white is different from the seafoam blue. I mean, it's just, I don't know. So.
And you said Parawire, is that P-A-R-A wire?
Yes.
Okay.
Parawire.com.
I'm sure people are going to want to know where. Oh, Liz Adams said she'll be in touch. So that's
Yeah,
good.
good.
All right. Well, I can't believe we have to stop. We could talk all day. This is wonderful. I'm so excited about this summer. I can't wait to see your class and see what you make. This is exciting.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for having me today. I value HGA and all the work you guys do. I just am very grateful for all of what you do. So thank you.
Oh, we appreciate you joining us today. And I do want to point out that the website is christinekmiller.com. If you put in Christine Miller sometimes, there's other artists with that name, and you'll figure it out when you see it.
Yeah.
The K.
And there's a link on my website to my online studio under the tab courses. So if you just go to christinekmiller.com and then go to courses, it'll take you to the online studio.
And I have to say, folks, she's another one of those who is beyond generous. There is so much information on her website. Go check it out. If you're curious, think you might want to try it, go check it out. Go check out her book too. A great walks you kind of with your hand gently along. So tons of information on this website. So we want to thank our sponsors today. We are so excited. We had Pamela Bisson and Melody Usher together sponsored this episode of Textiles and Tea. It was a lovely way of doing that. Thank you, Pamela. Thank you, Melody. If you want to sponsor an episode of Textiles and Tea or your guild or your business, give us a call or go to our website and go to the Textiles and Tea page, and you can see where you can sponsor. You'll click on there and it'll walk you through all the steps. So get your buds together if you want to sponsor a Textiles and Tea. Instead of a girls' night out, do a girls' night Textiles and Tea. We would love to have you. We want to thank everybody who has been sponsoring us all along. Sorry, Mandy, I'm jumping around here. We've got some interesting grants and scholarship deadlines coming up. I don't think people understand that there is money available for you to further your fiber arts career. There's scholarships. If you're in an accredited program and you want to learn more, there's up to $4,000 that you can get if you're in an accredited fiber arts program. It's for USA and Canadian citizens. And you can go on wevespindie.org and learn more about ways that you can get money to further your academic career. And I hope you'll check it out. The deadlines are coming up, though. The scholarship deadline, as you can see, is April the 18th. So you got to kind of boogie to get that one done. We also have grants for those of us who are out of school, but we still want to learn. There's some wonderful grants available, anywhere from $300 to $750. You have to be a member. It's a non-credited workshop, class, conference, except for Convergence. And you can use a grant. You can also get a grant if you want to kind of teach it forward. If you want to teach beginner weaving and spinning, you can get money to help you do that and start your program and keep it going. So check those out. Again, time's running out. Grants are April the 4th. That's just a couple of days away, but you can get that information in pretty quickly. Go to our website, check out our scholarships and grants page. All the information that you need and the application is there. We want to thank everybody who supported us through these donations and by your membership. It's kind of a perfect segue because those grants and scholarships come from the money that's donated to the Fiber Trust and donated to HGA. That's what we do with some of this money is, again, supporting the fiber arts by helping people with their education and their learning. So thank you all for supporting us. If you want to make a donation or you want to join, wevespindie.org. Thank you. If you've missed any episodes or you want to watch this one again, you can. You can go to the HGA Facebook page or you can go to the HGA YouTube page. I encourage you to do YouTube. If you're going to do YouTube, sign up and you will get a notice when another episode has been uploaded. And you can watch all of them all the way back to the very first one if you want. So thank you all so much. Hope you had a good time today. I enjoyed talking with Christine. And we will see you next week when we have Patty Zawistowski. If you don't know her, she is a spinner extraordinaire. So all you spinners or wannabe spinners, you watch this, you're going to want to spin. I know you will. So thank you all so much. Have a great week and we'll see you next Tuesday. Happy tea.